Welcome to Nice and Blunt. I'm Adam Riancho, and it's time to make some win-loss picks for the NFC South, a division that has recently been kind of bad, not that competitive. The Bucs have been pretty dominant the last few years. However, this season, I think there may be multiple above 500 teams. It's been quite a while since we've been able to say that for this division. But the Bucs are the reigning champs. We're going to take a look at their schedule first, and it does have a lot of tough matchups as a first place schedule. But week 1, they get one of their toughest tests. This is an underrated difficult spot for them. They got swept by Kirk Cousins last year, and they do struggle at stopping Drake London in this matchup. So week 1 on the road at Atlanta, I think they will be tested without Chris Godwin, without Rashad White perhaps, and maybe Tristan Wirfs, their elite left tackle, might be unavailable as well. So there are some injuries, there's some moving parts. The new offensive coordinator is still a question mark. Can he be as good as Liam Cohen? Let's find out. I don't think they're going to beat the Falcons. I think just like last year, the Falcons will have their number. And Drake London, as always, will torch them, especially in the Falcons Hope Stadium. So I'm giving it to Atlanta week 1. I think they start off with an L. And then week 2, they go Monday night at Houston. That's a really tough defense to face off against. And Nico Collins is fully healthy. The run game is a weakness for the Texans. The Bucs have a great run defense themselves, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I'm going to give it to Houston. I think their defense will find a way. An 0-2 start for the Bucs is my projection. On the road in both games, not ideal. But coming home for the week 3 season opener, they get the Jets, and they're definitely beating Justin Fields. I don't see them going 0-3. That one feels like an automatic win. But week 4, they get a game at home versus the Eagles, and they've historically given the Eagles a very difficult time. The Bucs match up very well with Philadelphia, and I think they get the job done. I think they can beat them, especially with that 0-2 start. A bit of extra motivation to get the job done here. A 2-2 beginning to the season. Week 5, though, they travel cross-country to Seattle, and the Seahawks defense is pretty underrated. I think some of their injuries at receiver will play a factor. So maybe Godwin is here, but I don't think Egbuka and Evans will completely torch the really good secondary in Seattle. I'm giving it to Sam Darnold. Kind of an upset, but I think the Seahawks are better than people give them credit for. So back to the losing column. And then week 6, Sunday morning versus San Francisco. I think the Niners with Christian McCaffrey will figure it out at that point in time. I'm going to give it to the Niners. And even though it's a close call here, I think this game could go either way. At the end of the equation, I don't fully trust Todd Bowles, the head coach for the Buccaneers. Sometimes he's a bit too conservative. We saw that play out last year when they took overtime against the Chiefs instead of going for 2 and trying to get the win. Sometimes they don't take the risk necessary in order to win. So another 2-game losing streak here for the Bucs. 2-4 is not ideal, but week 7 Monday night at Detroit, they've given the Lions a tough time as well, and kind of desperation mode kicking in again. I trust them in prime time to get the job done. The Lions have a really tough schedule, and even though this game is in Detroit, I think Baker can really torch them in the secondary. That game is going to be a shootout, a really fun matchup. I'm going to take Tampa in that spot. In week 8, though, they get an automatic win. The Saints are the worst team in the league this year, back to 500 going into the week 9 bye. So a bit of a rough patch in weeks 1 and 2, weeks 5 and 6. Those L's are not pretty, but back to 500, they're in okay shape at this point in time. But week 10, Sunday morning, off the bye versus New England at home. As much as I'm excited for Drake May and Mike Vrabel, I don't think the Patriots can beat a playoff team like Tampa. The Patriots will beat up on bad teams, not teams that were in the playoffs last year. So a win, they're finally above 500 this season, but then some 2 tough matchups here. Week 11, Sunday morning at Buffalo. That's never easy. I'm giving it to the Bills. That's an L. And then week 12, Sunday night at the Rams. That one's going to be close. On the road, though, they played really well at SoFi Stadium last year against the Chargers, and I think Baker Mayfield will do it again against his former team. I think he gets the job done. So give me the Bucs here. I don't think the Rams are like a perfect team this season. That one's going to be close, a really tough matchup, but I will give it to Tampa in week 12. Week 13, Sunday morning versus Arizona. I think later in the year, the Cardinals are going to start to fall apart, and I do think a win streak is in order for Tampa here. A win versus Kyler, 2 former Oklahoma quarterbacks. I think Baker will get the best of Kyler. In Week 14, Sunday morning versus New Orleans, they will sweep the Saints. Pretty much an automatic win every time anyone faces New Orleans. And then Week 15, they get a Thursday night game in primetime versus Atlanta, and the short rest, not going to be ideal. Just like last year, I'm projecting the Falcons to sweep Tampa. Even though without Kirk Cousins, I still think they can do it. Michael Penix, in my opinion, is better than Kirk Cousins. So they can never stop Drake London when they go up against him. He always torches them. They play better at home. This game will be better than Week 1, but I'm still going to go with the Falcons, just like last year, 0-2 versus Atlanta. Week 16, though, Sunday morning at Carolina. On the road is not ideal, and the Panthers are going to be better than they get credit for this year. I'm giving them an L in Week 16, but the last 2 games of the season, I think they will win. They can definitely torch the Dolphins' bad defense. The Miami secondary is a joke, so that's an easy win in Week 17, and then I don't expect them to get swept by the Panthers. So they're going to lose one of those games. I'm expecting a loss on the road, and then at home, they will turn it around. They'll split with Carolina. They'll win in Week 18. So that's a 10-7 record. I think it's fine enough to make the playoffs with some tiebreakers against other 10-7 teams like Detroit and the Rams. I think they will punch their ticket at worst as a wild card spot. But the 3-3 record in division is not ideal, especially with 2 losses to the Falcons. There's a chance that they're just a wild card team and don't get home field advantage like they did last season. So next up, let's talk about the Falcons, a team I just mentioned I think will sweep Tampa, and I think they're going to be better than last season. They addressed their defense. That's been neglected for several years now, and I do trust Michael Penix to be better than Kirk Cousins, especially throwing the ball deep. He's a really effective passer. Bijan is set to really break out. He was elite at the end of last year, and I think it's going to continue. Having a top 5 running back in the NFL can be a true difference maker. We saw what that did for Philly last year with Saquon. So I'm really excited about the Falcons. I think Drake London at 24 years old is also going to take a big leap forward. A big breakout is set up for him. And at some point, Darnell Mooney will return. If they can get anything out of Kyle Pitts better than they've gotten in the past, this team will be tough to beat. So I'm really excited for Michael Penix. Let's take a look at the schedule, see what's going to happen for the Atlanta Falcons. Like I mentioned, I do think they sweep Tampa, so Week 1 is a win. And then Week 2, Sunday night at Minnesota, I'm going to give it to the Vikings. The Kevin O'Connell coaching is, I think, the advantage here against Raheem Morris. And I also think Brian Flores' defensive scheme is going to be really sharp, especially at the beginning of the season. Just like last year, they're going to give a lot of quarterbacks headaches. Penix still has not had enough reps in the NFL to, I think, elevate his game and beat Brian Flores. So an underrated defense in Minnesota. On the road, it's a very tough environment. In primetime, I think with a lack of film on J.J. McCarthy, Kevin O'Connell will have some plays up his sleeve. In Week 2, I'm giving it to the home team, the Vikings, take the dub. So an L for the Falcons in Week 2, and I think in Week 3, they'll have a tough time on the road in division at Carolina. I think Tet McMillan is going to be unstoppable. The Falcons secondary is not quite elite. They have a great safety, but I don't really trust the corners to totally lock up their opponents. So on the road, I think is going to be a big problem for Penix this year. The Falcons are a much better team at home, and I think on the road, they're going to have a really tough time against average and above average teams. So I'm actually envisioning a loss Week 3 at Carolina. I think Bryce Young might shock some people. So 2 tough losses. Michael Penix may have some things to prove still, but I think one reason why they're going to lose to the Carolina Panthers is because they're looking ahead to Week 4, and this Commanders matchup is way more important. I think they can shock some teams, and especially at home, I think that's where it really pays off for them. I'm going to give them an upset win against Jaden Daniels. Maybe Terry McLaurin doesn't have the best chemistry given he missed a lot of practice this season. And perhaps Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt is not everything he's been hyped up to be over the last couple weeks. Maybe without Brian Robinson Jr., they don't have much of a run game against the Falcons. So I'm calling upset here. They start off 2-2 going into the week 5 bye. They beat Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, and they gain some confidence for the rest of the year. But week 6 off the bye. If you watched my Bills prediction, I actually took the Falcons in this game, but I'm changing my mind. I'm not expecting them to beat Josh Allen. Even off the bye, I'll give it to Buffalo. The Bills are definitely a better team. On paper, they have the reigning MVP. That's got to count for something. So an L in week 6, followed by a road game at San Francisco. And like I mentioned, those road games are really going to be tough for the Falcons. So I think Kyle Shanahan knows Raheem Morris well enough based on their division rivalries when he was the Rams defensive coordinator. I'm going to give it to the Niners. At this point, I expect McCaffrey to still be healthy. And CMC versus Bijan, going to be a great matchup. I'm going to give it to McCaffrey because this game is in San Francisco. So 2 straight L's yet again. They're starting off 2-4. Not great. But in week 8, Sunday morning, back home versus the Dolphins, I think they'll torch that secondary. The Dolphins defense is a joke. That's a win in week 8. But week 9, Sunday morning at New England, I think Mike Vrabel, especially in Foxborough, is going to be a tough matchup to beat, and I will give it to the Patriots. Historically, they've found a way to come back and win against the Falcons. We all remember 28-3. So might not be that disgusting of a loss, but still I think the Patriots take it. Give me an L for Michael Penix on the road yet again. In week 10, they're traveling, but technically it's also a home game. They get Daniel Jones and the Colts in Berlin, Germany, and I think this is where Michael Penix starts to win on the road. A win in Germany against the Colts. I don't trust the Colts that much this year. I think the Falcons defense will lock up Daniel Jones. So a win in week 10, followed by a home game against Carolina Sunday morning versus the Panthers, I think is a win. They're not going to get swept by Bryce Young, especially not at home. So that's their first win streak of the season, and I think it continues. Sunday at New Orleans in week 12, that's an automatic win for everyone facing New Orleans this year. So week 13, they have 3 wins in a row, and then they get the Jets on the road. I do not trust Justin Fields. He might even be banged up, but even if he's not, the offense for the Jets is just not inspiring. Give me Michael Penix and Bijan to get the job done. A 4th straight win against the Jets in week 13. Week 14, Sunday morning versus Seattle at home. This is where I think Darnold has the advantage. I think the defense for the Seahawks is much better than the Falcons defense. So Penix not going to have a perfect win streak here. I think at some point it will get snapped. 4 wins in a row is pretty impressive, but it's not going to be 5. Give me an L in week 14. But week 15, Thursday night at Tampa Bay, they're going to be looking ahead to this matchup, maybe one of the reasons why they lose to Seattle. And just like last year, I think they can sweep the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. For some reason, they just have their number, and Drake London does always play well against Tampa. So give me a win here. They're second against the Buccaneers, and it does kind of put them in the driver's seat in the division. They swept Tampa with 2 wins against Carolina and New Orleans, and a game against the Saints remaining. They could easily go 5-1 in division, and that does help them in the tiebreaker department. So that's a critical game for them. I think beating Tampa the second time is the key to making the playoffs this year for Atlanta. But week 16 on the road at Arizona, I don't trust Kyler this year. Give me a win for Penix in week 16. And then week 17, Monday night versus the Rams, I'm going to trust Sean McVay. He knows Raheem Morris a little too well. So this will be a very good game in prime time. I think it could be a very high scoring shootout, but give me the Rams. I think they'll find a way in this matchup. But last game of the season, a very easy one to win against the Saints at home, an automatic dub, in my opinion. So that's a 10-7 record for Michael Penix and the Falcons. They're finally above 500. It's been a while since we've seen it, but with a 5-1 record, a full sweep of Tampa, tied at 10-7, they are in the driver's seat. I think they're going to win the division because of those wins against Tampa. So love the Falcons this year. I'm really excited for Michael Penix. There's 6 primetime games for Atlanta, and I think the NFL knows this is going to be a good team this season. Penix is a very underrated quarterback. I think he deserved to go top 10 last year. Maybe it was strange because they had Kirk Cousins, but I think this year, it's going to look like a wise decision. Penix is going to play pretty well. The Panthers, though, I think are under the radar and will be better than most people think. Last year in the second half of the season, Bryce Young got his shit together and he actually looked pretty competent and much better than his rookie season. So especially with the addition of Tet McMillan, this passing game is going to be hard to beat. I also like the addition of Rico Dowdle, and if their defense can just start to get some turnovers, they will be much better than they have been the last several years. So let's take a look at this schedule. We have week 1 Sunday morning at Jacksonville. I'm personally a believer in the Jags this season. I think especially not knowing what to expect from Travis Hunter is an advantage for Jacksonville. And early in the year on the road, the Panthers not going to know what hit them. Give me an L week 1 against Trevor Lawrence and the Jags. But week 2, they beat the Cardinals last year at home. This time it's on the road. And even though Kyler Murray's not terrible, I think Bryce Young is on equal footing as him. I think Bryce Young could be a better quarterback, honestly, this season. I'm going to take the Panthers. Maybe an upset win in your eyes, but last year they beat Arizona. I think it happens again. I think Chuba Hubbard runs all over the Arizona Cardinals. Give me a win in week 2. Week 3, Sunday morning versus the Falcons. I think especially at home, they're going to find a way to upset Atlanta. Give me a win in week 3. I think the Falcons are going to struggle on the road, as I previously mentioned. But week 4, the Panthers travel to New England against Drake May and the Patriots, and I don't see it happening, especially in Foxborough. Give me Mike Vrabel and the Patriots. The Patriots are going to beat the average to mediocre teams. The teams that didn't make the playoffs last year are not going to be beating the Patriots. So give me an L. They're 2-2, just like everyone in this division. But Sunday, week 5 in the morning versus the Dolphins, I have no faith in Miami this year. So give me a win for the Carolina Panthers. They're above 500 once again. And here, I expect a winning streak Sunday morning versus Dallas week 6. I don't trust Dallas at all. Brian Schottenheimer not making me feel confident. I think they can beat Dak Prescott. They lost last year, but I think without Micah Parsons feeling fully comfortable with the team right now, maybe the holdout lasts a while. It probably doesn't, but I'm still going to call upset here. I'm going to take the Panthers. I don't think they can stop Tet McMillan and Chuba Hubbard. Give me the Panthers over Dallas. But week 7, I think they're going to win 3 in a row at the Jets is always a good spot, and I don't feel that confident in Justin Fields this season. Give me the Panthers to go 5-2 to start the year. A really strong beginning to the season for Carolina. But week 8, their luck is going to end Sunday morning versus Buffalo. They're not beating Josh Allen and the Bills. So that's a easy L, not a chance. And then week 9, they have to travel into Lambeau to take on Jordan Love and the Packers. I'm definitely taking the Packers. They're by far a better team. So 2 straight L's. They're 5-4 at this point. But Sunday morning versus New Orleans, that's a win for everyone. Week 10 is a win, especially at home against the Saints. Week 11, Sunday morning at Atlanta. I don't expect them to sweep the Falcons. This game is on the road. Give me the Falcons. Historically a much better team when playing in Georgia than on the road. So an L in week 11. They're going to split the series. And then week 12, Monday night at San Francisco, the first primetime game for Bryce Young, basically since he was a college quarterback. It's been a long time since we've seen Bryce in primetime, and I think he steps up. I think he lives up to the moment. I'm going to call upset. I'm going to give the Panthers the win. The Niners don't give me the biggest level of confidence. And although it's a revenge game for Christian McCaffrey, there's a chance he's not fully healthy, just like last year at this time of the season. So if CMC is not on the field, I think that's an easy win for the Panthers. But even if he is, I think in a close call, I'm going to call upset. Give me Bryce Young over Brock Purdy. But week 13, Sunday morning versus the Rams, they're not going to be that much better than some of these elite playoff teams. I think the Rams win pretty comfortably. That's an L in week 13. But week 14, the bye finally arrives. And week 15, they get a road game against the Saints. That's an automatic win, especially coming off the bye. They should be good. But week 16, Sunday morning versus Tampa, their first game against Tampa this season. And I think especially at home, they can find a way. Maybe weather's a factor. Maybe things just break right and some turnovers go in their favor. I think they'll split the series with Tampa this year and give me the home game against the Buccaneers. They've put up a good fight against Baker in the past. I think they win in week 16. So at this point, they're 9-6. They're actually in the driver's seat to win the division. But like I mentioned with the Bucs and the Falcons, they're both going to be 10-7 in my opinion. They got to win out to fully lock up the division. And I don't see it happening against Seattle. I'm going to take Sam Darnold and the Seahawks. I trust their defense a lot more than the Panthers at this moment. And I think the Seahawks are an underrated team. Even on the road, I think Darnold will win. Give me a loss for the Panthers at home week 17, which sets up a winner-go-home game against Tampa in week 18. And to expect them to sweep the series, win on the road, I think is a bit naive. I think they lose the last 2 games, and this loss to Tampa does keep them out of the playoff picture. I don't think the Bucs will miss the playoffs entirely, and with this win, the Bucs lock up that wild card spot, and the Panthers are not going to get it done. So 9-6 finishes 9-8, 1 win above 500, but 1 win short of making a playoff appearance. The Panthers, I think with an easy schedule, have a shot to maybe make the playoffs, but I just don't expect it to happen. I'd rather bet on Atlanta to get that job done. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the number 1 overall pick, Bryce Young, does play better football than the Falcons. It's going to be really close, but I think these 3 teams, the Bucs, the Falcons, and the Panthers, are neck and neck with each other. And the one team I think will miss is going to be Carolina at 9-8. Unfortunate, but definitely a big improvement. Last year they were 5-12, and definitely a lot to be excited about. The first winning season for the Panthers in quite some time. But lastly, let's talk about the Saints. I think the Saints are pretty much guaranteed to be the number 1 draft pick this season. Maybe I'm underestimating their defense, but I have no confidence in their quarterback situation. And even though Kellen Moore might dial up some good plays, I just don't trust him at all. I think they're really tanking for a quarterback at the end of the day. After all, Arch Manning has some family that played for New Orleans as well. If they could get Manning, they'd be ecstatic about it. Even if they get a different quarterback, they're going to be a guaranteed top 3 draft pick next year in April. So I'm not expecting a single win for the Saints. I actually think they're going to go 0-17. I think not only are they a terrible roster, but they're actually actively tanking, in my opinion. I think that's really their plan this year. This year means nothing. They have no shot at the Super Bowl, let alone the playoffs, and I think they're just going to let it all hang out on the field. If Kamara goes down early, this team is really lacking some depth, and it wouldn't shock me if Olave suffered another concussion, missed a lot of time. Shaheed also missed time. Their receiver depth is pretty brutal, and without Taysom Hill, there's a lack of dynamic playmakers on the field. So I just don't trust Tyler Shuck or Spencer Rattler. I don't even know who the starting quarterback is, and I don't think it moves the needle at all. It'll rotate at some point. We'll get the backup in, but look at this schedule. Where are the wins? Week 1 versus Arizona. Nope. Gonna take Kyler. Week 2 against the Niners, I'll take Shanahan. Week 3, I'll take Sam Darnold. Week 4, no fucking chance they beat Josh Allen. Week 5, I think Russell Wilson will be clamoring for his job. I'll give it to the Giants. Week 6, Sunday versus New England, no chance. The Patriots will beat bad teams. Then at Chicago, maybe, but you got to be a big Bears hater to bet on that. I'll take the Bears. And then week 8 versus Tampa, no chance they get swept by Tampa both times. The Rams will definitely beat them. I think the Panthers sweep them. After the bye, they get Atlanta. I think they get swept by the Falcons as well. The Dolphins, maybe they can beat, but honestly, this game I think will decide that number 1 overall pick, and I think the Saints will actively tank on the road. I'll take Miami. But like I mentioned, they're getting swept by the Bucs, the Panthers, and the Falcons, which only leaves week 16 and 17 against the Jets and Tennessee, and I trust Justin Fields and Cam Ward much more than their quarterback. So maybe they max out at like 3 wins, but honestly, I think 0-17 is not a bad bet to make. I don't see more than 1, and even that feels generous. So this is my prediction. I have the Falcons winning this division with a 5-1 division record. Because they sweep Tampa, they do have the tiebreaker, and at 10-7, they do get home field in the wild card round. I think the Falcons will represent the NFC South this year at 10-7. I believe Michael Penix is legit. But if not for a tough schedule, I think the Bucs are by far better. Even on the road, I would expect the Bucs to make it further in the playoffs than the Falcons. I trust them more, but the Falcons, I think, with an easier schedule, are going to luck in to the division lead. But the Bucs still make the playoffs because they beat Detroit and the Rams. They have the tiebreakers necessary at 10-7 to lock up a wild card spot. They will be in the playoffs, and watch out. I think the Bucs are a sneaky pick to make the Super Bowl or at least the NFC Championship. If you told me Baker goes on a winning streak in the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised. Even on the road, I think they can beat anyone. So I really like the Bucs, but I don't think they win the division this year. And then the Panthers are right there at 9-8. It could go in their favor, but I just think they're missing one key piece. Maybe one singular fumble or sack costs them a win, and that's the difference between a 10-7 wildcard team and a 9-8 bubble team that just misses the cut. So Panthers 9-8, a very respectable season, but third place in the division, not quite enough to make the playoffs. And then Saints dead last, not just in the division, but the conference and the entire NFL. 0-17 will be good for the number 1 draft pick next year in April. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. If you're interested in my other division predictions, I've done every single division except for the AFC South. So take a look at this playlist on the channel right here if you're interested. And until next time, my name's Adam Riancho. Thank you for watching. Nice and blunt.